Hello and welcome back to the Radical Center. I have returned. It's been some time since I've been a part of the show, and I'm really excited to be here with my co-hosts, Ian and Cody. We have a lot of topics to cover today, and we're going to, work to make sure that we have some really, really good conversations and go from there. Cody, welcome back. Ian, welcome back. Have you guys missed me, or was it fun?
Welcome back.
We missed you.
Yeah, of course we missed you.
Was it better without me for some time? So I'm really excited to have you guys here and to talk about these conversations. There's a lot going on in this country right now. There was a clip that we saw on X, with what the Parliamentary Budget Officer was saying in one of the committee meetings, and he seems really concerned. He's quite concerned about the fiscal picture in this country, and it seems quite dire. You guys both watched the video. What do you think? I'll go to you, Cody, first. What do you think of what the Parliamentary Budget Officer said? And I guess, what do we expect is going to happen?
Well, I think that, he didn't just issue a warning. He's telling the halls of power in plain English that, things cannot continue as they are, running huge deficits. They are at the point right now of no return, essentially, and now the Prime Minister is faced into a narrow path of drastic cuts and potential new taxes. And some of these drastic cuts is going to be him going back on some of his campaign promises, but that's pretty much all I have to say.
Yeah, Ian, what do you think? What do you expect is going to happen? And
Well,
I think Carney will be able to get through this.
The budget deficit we're starting to learn what it's going to be. World Bank says it's going to be 88 billion. The parliamentary officer says it's 65 billion. Both numbers are very high. Freeland didn't read her budget statement. It leaked out the next day that the deficit was going to be 42 billion. So Carney's added to that. And he's added to that with order in council payments over the summer without calling Parliament. He's added probably $40 billion. So what is he going to spend it on? We don't know yet. And the final thing I want to say is that the interest on the deficit we have now is $53 billion a year. The whole budget that they're transferring to the provinces for healthcare is less than that. Yeah. So if we had that $53 billion we're just paying on interest, we could end hallway medicine.
Yeah, potentially. And, we could solve a lot of problems in this country. So from both your perspectives, this is a dire warning. The Prime Minister needs to do something. And I guess we will see what the upcoming budget will look like, and if that warning is responded to. Prime Minister Carney is his international expedition. He's been traveling the globe. Ian, what do you think of how well he's doing on the international stage, and what has he delivered so far?
This is his 7th trip to Europe, and so far we don't have any contracts signed, and he's had a lot of secret meetings, and he doesn't tell us who he's meeting with or what it's about. One of the reporters that interviewed him in Europe this time did his own research. It turns out that the 3 people he said he met with are all companies that he owns shares in. So if we had a conflict of interest law with teeth, which we don't have, he would be investigated for this. So I take out of it that he's produced nothing, and he's going around meeting with his friends that he has a monetary interest in. It's something's wrong there. Okay,
interesting. Cody, what do you think?
Yeah, I agree with a lot of what Ian just said. The only really things that I would add to it is that the claims that he makes of these endless high-cost international meetings are just necessary to, open new markets and save our economy. I mean, the guy has been in power since pretty much the beginning of this year. And there's only so many meetings that you can fly to. And not it's a basic, in the media, they call it deliverables. And when you are any foreign leader, because every foreign leader does travels, you have to have a set of deliverables. There are 0 sets of deliverables. There is nothing that have come out of these meetings. As a matter of fact, the most notable one, where he sent some of his ministers to Mexico to go around the American administration, backfired horribly. And when he went to Mexico himself, sure, there was pageantry, there was niceties, but the Mexican president and many other world leaders have learned how you deal with Donald Trump. So that's what I would say. I think the biggest thing out of these international meetings is, again, what Ian just said.
Okay.
Let me add one more thing, if I could.
Yeah, go ahead.
That back in the day, and I'm talking 1950s and 1960s, the Canadian government and the provincial governments borrowed against the Canada Pension Fund to build the Trans-Canada Highway and the 400 series in Ontario. And then we paid it back, with interest. Well, that fund now has $714 billion in it, and only 12% of that is invested in Canada. My suggestion is let's get our investment money from the Canada Pension Plan, and we borrow the money basically from ourselves and pay back the interest. Instead, we're paying interest to foreign banks and foreign companies.
Yeah, I have a bit of a different perspective on this particular topic. I think, I am a fan of Carney. I think people know that. But I think, he's in a really tough position where the world is so unstable. And there's so many, the deliverables are very difficult to deliver on. They're not easy things, right? And it's such an unstable world. There's so many players that are involved. I think this is what he should be doing, going out there, engaging with world leaders as much as he can. I think if he wasn't doing that, we'd be sitting around saying, why isn't he out there and doing nothing and not representing Canada and not trying to help in this very unstable world? But that's just my perspective. Would you guys like to add anything to that?
It's only unstable because he didn't do a deal with Trump. Canada and Mexico should have been the first 2 countries that did a deal with Trump. We found out that Carney's people have been down in Washington not offering any compromises to make a deal. He should, and he's in Washington again today. Let's hope he finally wants to make a deal with Trump. 80% of our jobs and 80% of our exports are to the United States. You can't turn that around with a few trips to Europe. It will take 5 to 10 years to get investment other than the United States, to get customers other than the United States. Do a deal with Trump now.
That's a good point. It would take a lot longer to get a deal with other countries and get things moving than to get a deal done with Trump.
The other thing that I would add before we move on is I think the most insulting thing that has happened on Canadian soil when it comes to world leaders is the Prime Minister of the UK and the United States President signing a trade deal in April on Canadian soil.
Exactly.
It should have been us. And
Could have been.
Carney's going to get to a point where the promise of elbows up is going to wear off. It's starting to wear off. People are starting to sour. But it's going to get to a point where he has to make a deal with somebody, or he's just, Trump's right. They're just going to destroy our economy.
Yeah, and that's a terrifying idea. The housing market continues to crash. There's been a lot going on in the real estate world and the housing world. We went from having very, very expensive housing prices that were completely unaffordable, and now things are crashing. They're coming down quite significantly. Condo market has significantly suffered, and now we're starting to see that also with detached homes, semi-detached homes, and townhouses, and that is a concern for a lot of people. My perspective is a little bit different. It's a correction that's been needed in the market. We had so many young people saying the housing prices are completely unaffordable, and there's no way that they'd be able to reach that. What do you guys think? Do you think this is a sign of something worse that's to come, or do we think that this was a correction that was needed in a housing market that had inflated prices to begin with?
The housing market is inflated because interest rates are so high, because there was so much money pumped into the economy during the 2020 COVID pandemic. There are many reasons why that is starting to catch up to us. What I will say is, especially as somebody who works in the industry, when something goes haywire in the market, the government is the last person to tell you. And the government still hasn't told us a whole lot. Well, CMHC has, but the other thing is that Ron Butler, the mortgage agent, he was actually talking about last October about the fact that mortgage delinquencies and defaults were going up, and he said that it's going to get worse before it gets better. So I believe that what he predicted is just now coming true.
Okay.
The 100,000 Canadians starting this month have to renew their mortgage at higher rates. And it's going to be 100,000 a month all of next year. They're going to be hit with sticker shock. On an average mortgage, let's say you're paying $2,500 a month, you're going to face another $1,200 a month just to renew your own mortgage. So you're up to $3,700 a month, and lots of people won't be able to afford that. Well, what it's going to do is they're going to be selling their house, again, at a loss because the market's going down.
Yeah.
It's only going to get worse from here, unfortunately. And then those people are going to crowd into the rental market because they had to sell their house. So the rental market the rents will probably go up. So it's a totally worst case scenario. And young people, those under 40, can't even put together a down payment without help from their parents. So they're not buying. Nobody is buying. And that's across Canada. It's a real problem. It's not going to get better.
Yeah, it really is. Let's talk a little bit about Trump and his Middle East plan. He released the Middle East plan that was, it's been well received, to his credit, by a lot of people who want to see the war in Gaza come to an end. What do you think? I'll start with you, Ian. What do you think of the plan, and what do you think its chances are for success?
Well, first of all, Trump is finally putting pressure on Netanyahu. And this started after the attack on Qatar. And before he invited Netanyahu to Washington, and before he announced this new plan, he signed a joint defense treaty with Qatar. And who's the only one that's ever bombed Qatar? Israel. So he's starting to take a more independent position on dealing with Israel, which is a good thing. So then he comes up with a 21-point plan, and his plan, he will take control of Gaza, along with Blair from England and another committee. Israel will be cut out. This is all great news. The problem is, will Hamas agree to it? And then so far they said they don't like it.
Yeah. Cody, what do you think?
Well, I mean, I think the plan is pretty reasonable. If you take a look at even the Washington Post, David Ignatius, of what he wrote, no fan of Trump. Some people would call him the deep state conduit, or whatever you want to label him. But he said it was a good plan. And I agree. I think it is a good plan because, look, at the end of the day, everybody wants an end to the killing. Everybody wants there to be peace in the Middle East. They want peace to be across the world if we could have it. But it may be controversial to say or not, but I truly believe that if Donald Trump can't get it done, nobody can. And he's been the only world leader that's been willing to be unconventional, yes, but he is now starting to be more tougher on Israel. He's also being tough on Hamas and all the parties involved. Is it going to work? I don't know, but there is this one person, John Bolton. He never saw a war that he never liked. And if he hates the peace plan, then you know that is a good peace plan.
A lot of people, have made raised concerns that Tony Blair isn't really the best person for.
I agree with that.
Yeah, for
he's a war hawk.
Yeah, for a peace. What is it? A peace committee, or what was it? What are they calling it? You agree with that, Ian?
Well, yeah, no. When I was in London, England, he was all over the 10 newspapers of London, right up Baby Bush's ass, and getting a lot of negative at home. And after he supported Bush and the Iraq War, about 5 years later, after he retired, he apologized and said he was wrong. Well, come on, you were stupid to back Baby Bush back then. What makes you think he's not stupid now?
Well, I mean, we can argue over. I mean, the Board of Peace thing, I think it's symbolic and it's obviously temporary. I don't think that the United States wants to take control of the governance of Gaza. I think that that is just an interim thing. I think that the ultimate goal is to have a governing body in Palestine that doesn't see war as often. And again, like, I don't really want to get into like the philosophical and the ideological stuff. I want to try and focus on the politics. It's not black and white. These are complicated issues that go back thousands of years. But what I will say is that, we're basically coming to the end of our ropes. The Biden administration wanted to fund this war to the teeth, right? There are still a lot of war hawks that want this war to keep going because all it does is make military industrial contractors rich. So any peace plan, in my view, is a good one.
Yeah, I agree with that. Let's move to provincial issues. Premier Ford wants to introduce surveillance cameras in Ontario communities to catch suspects in home invasions and car thefts. This is coming after the Premier has been talking about getting rid of speed cameras, because he keeps getting complaints about people getting tickets for going.
His buddies.
4 or 5 people are texting him all night. I just got a ticket or whatever it is. So he wants to get rid of the speed cameras, but he doesn't want to throw them away. He wants to do something with them, and he's thinking maybe we can use them to catch criminals who are committing home invasions and car thefts. What do you guys think of this? I have a very, very interesting perspective.
So can I go first, because I'm sort of undecided on this one. Okay. So it's kind of hard to like fully explain this, but like I see both sides of the argument. Like, I understand that more surveillance cameras might be able to catch more bad guys, but I also see the side of it not really doing that much, because the bad guys don't care if they're on cameras. And then there's the civil liberties aspect of it. Like, it's like, I think, Noka, you had mentioned that it's sort of like his 401 tunnel idea. Like, it's an idea, but when you actually think about it, it doesn't make any sense. But I don't think Premier Ford really has the credibility to start talking about community safety when he's been absent in this entire thing. You talk about people texting him about getting speed cameras. It's only because he got messages about it. You talk about car thefts are out of control. That's only because somebody tried to steal his car. So, but again, it's somewhat of a federal issue, the bail laws and yada, yada, yada. But anyways, so yeah, that's what I think. What do you guys think?
I think it's a great idea. When I was in London, England, running a publishing company for 2 years, I met with local councillors, and I asked about the question because they were installing more cameras. And the councillor, city councillor, told me that traveling from where I lived to our office, both downtown, on other sides of downtown, I was going to be on camera 300 times every day. And they said, "What do you think about it?" I said, "Well, I'm not a criminal, so I don't give a shit." And he said, "That's been a great tool for the police." He said that they have cameras everywhere in downtown London, where most of the crime is. And he said what they do is they get a photograph of the people who are stealing whatever, a purse or whatever, and they put that photograph online, and they give it to all the newspapers. And they had support of the 10 newspapers in London, which would publish those pictures. And he said they would catch the criminals within a couple of days. Wow. And then, so when I came back to Canada, I mentioned to a couple of politicians, provincial and municipal, and they said, "Oh, what about privacy?" I said, "Well, wait a minute. Are you wanting to protect the privacy of the criminals? Because if I'm not creating a crime, I don't mind if I'm on camera all the time."
Yeah. My question is, how will it actually work? Where will these cameras be? How many cameras will there be? Right now, almost every household has a Ring door camera. So these criminals are being caught on camera, but they wear masks. And they're hard to identify. So I guess there's a lot of questions. That's why I compare it to the 401 tunnel idea. It's like, how is it actually going to look like? I think for Ford, he has to be a little bit careful with these big, massive ideas that aren't necessarily so easy to conceptualize for the average person. And they might be quite difficult to deliver on, because having cameras everywhere is a huge financial undertaking. I think in Mississauga, there's like 34 cameras. That's not going to cover a whole city.
Right. And again, it goes
What they
back
found
to
in
the
London is it actually freed up the police to
Yeah.
do real police work. And that the
Yeah.
money they saved
Yeah.
with the cameras, they were able to reallocate to find more bad guys.
Okay.
right. That's what
Yeah,
that's actually the argument that Patrick Brown made about the speed cameras, is that the more speed cameras they had, they were able to, divert resources otherwards. But I agree with Noka. Like, the question that you have to ask is, where the hell are they going to go? Is it
Everywhere.
arterial road again? And then this is why I'm conflicted, right? Is the fact that, okay, if you put them everywhere, then I think that's a privacy concern. Oh, sorry. I don't think. I can understand the argument from people.
Are you a bad guy? You don't want to be caught?
No, I don't care. I don't care. I don't care. I've been told I have a very good looking face, so I don't mind being on camera.
Canadians will have a hard time with being on camera all the time. I don't think, because okay, I have cameras near our house. I mean, we've all been driven through these cameras. They're only like for 200 meters. They don't cover like an entire. It's just a camera. So you know, there's an angle, and it just that's its
You put
view.
them on the buses.
I'm gonna install a Ring doorbell. I'm gonna install a Ring doorbell camera this weekend, and all it's gonna do is gonna face out towards my pickup, because my pickup is, likes to get stolen.
High crime areas, and you put them on every municipal bus
Okay.
and school buses.
Right. That's a good idea.
You're gonna pick
See,
up a lot of crime. Those
they
buses
should
go
pay
everywhere.
Ian. Yeah, they should pay.
I know.
Do consulting for the government.
And I've had it with these bleeding heart liberals that want to protect the bad guys.
Let's move on to our final topic. Someone familiar to all of you, this lady who keeps talking too much and writing too much and tweeting too much, says that we need to professionalize school boards and put an end to elected school board trustees. And here's the catch. She was an elected school board trustee for 8 years. Have you guys read the article?
Can I go first on?
Right on.
Yeah, go
And
ahead.
I think it's you.
So
Okay,
she got her hair done just for this topic. That's
50
what
words.
happened.
What your ideas are.
I'm sorry.
Tell our viewers in 50 words or 100 words what
the article is about. So basically, my perspective is, I served at the school board for 8 years. I was a school board trustee. That's what most people know me for. I believe that, there is an illusion to elected trustee power, which unfortunately causes a lot of disappointment for parents when they're seeking support for their children's education, because trustees are actually not allowed to interfere in operational matters and the day-to-day operations of a school board. So a trustee can't actually call up the principal and, resolve an issue or whatever. They always have to refer back to administration. That's one. And another concern is the fact that trustees are always getting into trouble with the Ministry of Education. Boards are constantly getting under supervision, usually for financial related misbehavior. But also, at our school board, I successfully advocated for supervision because of governance issues and for human rights issues, which the board was placed under supervision for 2 years. And the biggest issue that I have with this is the attention that is paid to trustees is so minimal. And the amount of people who vote for trustee are such a small percentage of the population. Think about it this way. Voter turnout for the municipal election, this includes mayor and council, is about 21 to 25%. Right? A smaller percentage of that actually check the ballot for trustee, because a lot of people leave it blank because they don't care, they don't have kids in the system, or they just don't know who to vote for. So think about how few people or what a small percentage of the electorate are actually engaged in this process. On top of that, lack of accountability, the lack of attention paid to trustees, accountability is basically evaporated. So my solution to all of this, and the reason why I wrote this, is because the minister's been talking about it. He wants to do something about trustees. He's not happy with trustee behavior. He's placed 4 boards under supervision, which is pretty massive, pretty serious. Usually they do them one at a time. And he's talking about getting rid of school boards entirely. I think that would be a mistake. I think that would be a step too far. You need to have some sort of mechanism to organize local public education, and to deliver public education locally in a way that that makes sense. The way he wants to do it, I think would cause a lot of problems in the system, because, or the way he mentioned he might do it, because imagine having one central special education department to deal with all of the cases of special education students throughout the province. It just doesn't make any sense. And so on and so forth in terms of planning or finance or all sorts of departments that make a school board function. So the real problem is, if the real problem is the behavior of school board trustees, then let's professionalize them, make them like police boards and hospital boards. When was the last time you heard of a hospital board or a police board being placed under supervision? And the reality is, with that, there are real consequences for breach of code of conduct, for misbehavior. People can be removed. With the electability of trustees, when they're elected, your only recourse is the next municipal election. And oftentimes, they get reelected because people don't know what they did, because people are not paying attention. So that's what I'm pushing for. That's what I'm hoping to see. It's been very well received by many people. We'll see what the minister, he said he wants to plan by the end of the year. So we'll see what he does. What do you guys
Well, let's
think?
hope there's a by-election where you can run for the Conservatives and, be the point person to implement the changes.
You think I could just become the minister and be like, I'll do it. Get out of the way.
And, I got an admission to make, is that when I go to my municipal ballot, every time I've done it, when it comes to the school board people, I pick a name from the top of the list and a name from the bottom of the list. And that's it. And everywhere I've lived, I've never even known, except for you, who my trustee is.
Yeah.
So there's total apathy from voters, in my opinion.
Yeah. Cody, what do you think?
Maybe you have to make reforms on a case-by-case basis, or maybe you're taking away the democratic right of parents. But then that argument also falls apart too, because, there's usually less than 25% turnout. It's way, 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 way less than 25%, right? In municipal elections, it's like 30% if you're lucky. And we're talking about, in the grand scheme of things, we're only talking about a couple thousand votes. Some areas in Peel Region, you only need 1,200 votes to win a seat. And I don't think that, that's representative of people. It's basically, you might as well just send out a poll to people and ask them what they think. But again, I don't know where I stand on this issue. I mean, I can see both sides of the argument. Both sides, people have good arguments, but at the end of the day, I'm glad I'm not making this decision, because it's a tough one to make.
Yeah, I actually think it'll be a lot easier than most people think, just because people don't care. This isn't something that's gonna rattle the average person or the average parent. This is something that's gonna upset school board trustees, and it'll likely upset the unions. And one of the arguments that I do hear against this is that school board trustees, they fight for students and they stand up to the government and which is not really the role of a trustee. The role of a trustee is governance. The people who do regularly, and that's their job, stand up to the government and advocate for more in public education, are the associations and the unions, and they do a fantastic job. They don't need school board trustees. I think the most school board trustees can do is write a letter to the minister and embarrass him for 5 minutes during negotiations. And in my experience, and I've written those letters, I've put out motions to write those letters, they don't really make a huge impact in the outcomes of negotiations. If anything, it doesn't really make a huge difference. So I'm pretty firm on this. I've actually been advocating for this for some time, since our board was placed under supervision, but it just wasn't a huge conversation that was being had. And now with Minister Calandra actually saying that he wants to do something about it, he wants to fix the problem once and for all, and good for him for wanting to do that. It's just an idea on the table, and I hope they take it and they take it seriously.
It's long overdue, as you say. The question is the details, and you've also said that. So, let's wait to see what he proposes. But, Toronto School Board has been the worst. They get involved in stuff that has nothing to do with educating our kids. And that's got to stop.
I think this is the third time the Toronto School Board has been under supervision since I became a trustee, which was only 10 years. I think my first term, they were under supervision. Actually, maybe not the third, but certainly the second, because, it's just been a repetitive pattern with them. But York was under supervision. Many boards have been placed in the same position, and if the government has to interfere so much, and in the article I say that Queen's Park has effectively become the babysitter of local school boards. If the government has to interfere so much and so frequently, then are they really elected officials? You can't. It's not real elected power.
Well, the one political fallout will be it's a recruiting ground for the parties. And Kathleen Wynne started as a trustee, gained a name for herself, and then moved up.
So did Carolyn Parrish.
Yeah, there are many examples all over the province. Some people end up becoming mayors. So it's a training ground. So as someone who used to recruit candidates, I lose that as a training ground. I have to look elsewhere.
Absolutely.
That's the only thing.
Yeah, but that's also another area where the counter argument for it fails, because a lot of people would say that if the government appoints them, then they're just going to be partisan loyalists or whatever.
They will be.
But they are now. Yeah. If you look at the Ontario Liberal Party's slate of candidates in the previous provincial election, how many of them were school board trustees?
Exactly.
A lot. Sitting school board trustees. So, there's a better way to do this. There's a better way to put the focus back on education and our children, which is exactly where it should be. And with that, we come to the end of our show. I'm happy to be back to the Radical Center. Thanks, Ian, and thanks, Cody, and thanks for giving me the opportunity to return and kind of ease myself back into this. But yeah, we look forward to more episodes. We will see you next week, and we will go from there.
See you. Bye-bye.
See you.